"Get this man out of my bank before I call the police," Robert Ashworth yelled. Tamil Thompson stood perfectly still at the loan officer's desk. He wore a simple gray suit that he had pressed himself that morning. His shoes were clean but not new. He held a brown folder in his hands that contained every document the bank had asked for. His business plan was inside that folder. His tax returns were inside that folder. His dreams were inside that folder too. The man who had just spoken was not the loan officer. The loan officer was a young woman named Patricia who had been helping Tamil for the past 20 minutes. She had seemed nervous the whole time, but also kind. She had asked good questions about his business plan. She had nodded when he explained his idea for a community grocery store in the neighborhood where he grew up. The man who had spoken was older. He was tall with silver hair that was combed back tight against his head. His suit cost more than most people in this town made in a month. A gold watch caught the light every time he moved his wrist. A name plate on his chest read Robert Ashworth III, and below that it said Bank President. Robert Ashworth III was the most powerful man in Charleston when it came to money. His family had owned this bank for 3 generations. His grandfather had built it with old money from cotton and tobacco. His father had grown it by lending to the right families. Now Robert ran it the same way his father and grandfather had. Patricia looked up at her boss with wide eyes. Her hands were shaking slightly as she held the papers Tamil had given her. She opened her mouth to speak, but no words came out at first. "Mr. Ashworth," she finally said, "this gentleman has an appointment. He filled out all the proper forms last week. I was just reviewing his application." Robert Ashworth did not look at Patricia when she spoke. He kept his eyes locked on Tamil Thompson. His jaw was tight. His nostrils flared slightly like he smelled something bad in the air. "I can see what you were doing," Robert said. His voice was calm but cold like water from a deep well. "What I want to know is why you were doing it. We have standards at this bank. We have a certain type of client that we serve. This man is not that type." Tamil took a slow breath. He had faced moments like this before in his life. He had learned long ago that anger was a luxury he could not always afford. He had learned that sometimes the smartest thing to do was stay calm, even when your blood was boiling inside your chest. "Sir," Tamil said, his voice steady and clear, "I came here today because your bank advertises small business loans. I have a solid business plan. I have collateral. I have 10 years of experience managing grocery operations. I meet all your requirements." Robert Ashworth let out a short laugh through his nose. It was the kind of laugh that was not really a laugh at all. It was a sound meant to make another person feel small and stupid. "You meet the requirements," Robert repeated slowly like he was talking to a child. "Let me tell you something about requirements, son. Requirements on paper are just the beginning. We also look at character. We look at background. We look at whether a person fits with the values of First Heritage Bank." He took a step closer to Tamil. The smell of expensive cologne filled the space between them. "And when I look at you," Robert continued, "I do not see someone who fits. I see someone who should try the credit union on the other side of town. They handle your kind of business over there." The lobby had gone completely silent. A woman near the front door had stopped filling out her deposit slip. A security guard by the entrance shifted his weight from one foot to the other, but did not move forward. Patricia sat frozen at her desk like a statue made of flesh and bone. Tamil looked at Robert Ashworth for a long moment. He studied the older man's face carefully. He saw the pride there and the certainty. He saw a man who had never been told no in his entire life. He saw a man who believed he was better than others simply because of the family he was born into. "I understand," Tamil said quietly. He picked up his folder from Patricia's desk and tucked it under his arm. "I appreciate your time today." He turned and walked toward the door. His footsteps echoed on the marble floor. Each step felt heavier than the last, but he kept his back straight and his head high. Robert Ashworth smiled as he watched Tamil leave. It was the smile of a man who had won a game that was never fair to begin with. "Patricia," Robert said without looking at her, In the future, please check with me before you schedule appointments. I need to approve all loan applicants personally. We cannot have every person off the street wandering in here thinking they deserve our money." "Yes, sir," Patricia whispered. Her face was red with shame that was not her own to carry. Tamil pushed through the heavy glass doors and stepped out into the warm South Carolina sun. The air was thick with humidity like it always was in August. He stood on the sidewalk for a moment and let the heat wrap around him like a blanket. He looked back at the bank one more time. The building was old and grand with white columns out front like a courthouse or a plantation house. It had been standing on this corner for over 100 years. It had seen wars and storms and all kinds of change in the world around it. But some things inside that building had never changed at all. Tamil reached into his pocket and pulled out his phone. He dialed a number he knew by heart, even though he rarely had to use it. The phone rang twice before someone answered. "Tamil," the voice on the other end said. It was a woman's voice, professional and warm at the same time. "I was not expecting to hear from you today. Is everything all right?" "Hello, Angela," Tamil replied. He was still looking at the bank as he spoke. "I need to talk to my mother. Is she available right now?" There was a pause on the line. Tamil could hear papers shuffling and a keyboard clicking in the background. "She is about to go into a meeting with the Federal Reserve Board in 15 minutes, Angela said. "But for you she will always make time." "Hold on one moment, please." Tamil waited. A car drove past on the street behind him. A bird sang somewhere in a tree nearby. The world kept moving forward the way it always did, even when things felt like they were falling apart. Then a new voice came on the line. This voice was older and deeper. It carried the weight of authority and experience. It was a voice that made powerful men pay attention when it spoke. "Tamil," his mother said. "What happened?" Tamil almost smiled at that. His mother always knew when something was wrong. She had a gift for reading people, even through a phone line from hundreds of miles away. "I just got thrown out of a bank," Tamil said simply. "The president himself came out to do it. He told me I was not the type of client they serve here." His mother was quiet for several seconds. When she spoke again, her voice had changed. It was still calm, but there was something underneath it now. Something cold and sharp like a blade hidden in silk. "Which bank?" she asked. "First Heritage Bank of Charleston," Tamil replied. "Run by a man named Robert Ashworth III. "I see," his mother said. There was another pause and then she spoke again. "Tamil, I want you to listen to me very carefully. Are you listening?" "Yes, ma'am," Tamil answered. "I want you to go get yourself a nice lunch somewhere. I want you to order something good and sit somewhere comfortable. I want you to take your time and enjoy your meal. And then I want you to go back to that bank at exactly 3 o'clock this afternoon." Tamil nodded even though his mother could not see him through the phone. "What is going to happen at 3 o'clock?" he asked. His mother let out a small breath that might have been a laugh. "Justice," she said simply. "Now go eat, I have some phone calls to make." The line went dead. Tamil put his phone back in his pocket and looked at the bank one more time. He thought about Robert Ashworth and his expensive suit and his cruel smile. He thought about the way Patricia had looked so ashamed even though she had done nothing wrong. Then Tamil Thompson walked down the street to find a place to eat. He had about 3 hours to kill before the world would change in ways that Robert Ashworth could never have imagined. The little restaurant was called Mama Jean's Kitchen. It sat on a corner in the part of Charleston where tourists rarely went. The paint on the outside walls was faded and peeling in places. A neon sign in the window buzzed and flickered, but still managed to spell out the word "open." Inside, the air smelled like fried chicken and collard greens and cornbread fresh from the oven. The tables were simple wood with mismatched chairs pulled up around them. Photos covered every inch of the walls showing decades of customers and community events and smiling faces. Tamil walked in and felt himself relax for the first time that day. He had been coming to this place since he was a little boy. His grandmother had brought him here every Sunday after church. They would share a plate of biscuits and talk about his week at school. A woman behind the counter looked up when the door opened. She was in her 60s with gray hair pulled back in a tight bun. Her apron was stained with 100 different sauces and gravies. Her face lit up when she saw who had walked through her door. Tamil Thompson, she called out loud enough for the whole restaurant to hear. Get yourself over here and give me a hug right now. Tamil smiled his first real smile of the day. He walked over and wrapped his arms around the woman who had fed his family for generations. Miss Jean, he said into her shoulder, it is good to see you. She pushed him back to arm's length and looked him up and down like she was inspecting a car she might buy. Look at you in that fancy suit, she said. You look just like your daddy did when he was your age. God rest his soul. Now sit down and tell me what brings you to my kitchen in the middle of a Tuesday. Tamil took a seat at a small table near the window. Miss Jean brought him a glass of sweet tea without asking, and then sat down across from him with a heavy sigh. I had a meeting at the bank today, Tamil said. He wrapped his hands around the cold glass and stared at the table. It did not go well. Miss Jean's eyes narrowed. She leaned forward in her chair like she was ready to fight someone. Which bank? She asked. First Heritage, Tamil replied. Miss Jean made a sound in her throat that expressed exactly what she thought about that place. The Ashworth Bank, she said. Her voice dripped with something between disgust and sadness. That family has been poison in this town for 100 years. My own grandmother worked in their house back in the day. She told me stories that would curl your toes. I was trying to get a loan for my grocery store idea, Tamil explained. The one I told you about last month. I want to open it right here in this neighborhood, where there is no fresh food for miles. Miss Jean nodded slowly. Her eyes were soft with understanding. I remember, she said. You wanted to bring good food to folks who need it most. That is a noble dream, Tamil. This neighborhood deserves a place like that. The bank did not agree, Tamil said. Or at least the president did not agree. He threw me out before I could even finish my presentation. He said I was not their type of client. Miss Jean reached across the table and put her weathered hand on top of his. Listen to me, she said. There are two kinds of people in this world. There are people who build things up and there are people who tear things down. The Ashworths have always been the second kind. They got rich by taking from others. They stay rich by keeping others poor. She squeezed his hand tight. But you are a builder, she continued, just like your mother, just like your grandmother before her. You come from a long line of people who made something out of nothing. One ignorant man in a fancy suit cannot change who you are. Tamil looked up at her face. He saw kindness there and strength and the wisdom that comes from a hard life lived with grace. My mother said something is going to happen at 3 o'clock, Tamil told her. She told me to go back to the bank then. Miss Jean raised her eyebrows. A small smile played at the corners of her mouth. Your mother said that, she asked. Well now, that is interesting. Your mama does not make promises she cannot keep. I learned that a long time ago. She stood up and headed back toward the kitchen. You just sit tight, she called over her shoulder. I am going to bring you a plate of food that will make you forget all about that fool at the bank. And then you can tell me more about this grocery store of yours. Most people in Charleston had no idea who Tamil Thompson's mother really was. Most people only saw Tamil himself. They saw a black man in his early 30s who dressed simply and spoke politely. They saw someone who had grown up in a poor neighborhood and worked his way through community college. They saw someone easy to dismiss and easier to forget. What they did not see was the whole story. Tamil had grown up in this neighborhood just like he said. His father had worked 2 jobs his whole life to keep food on the table. His grandmother had raised him while his parents worked long hours. He had learned the value of hard work and humility from people who had nothing but gave everything. But his mother was a different story entirely. Evelyn Thompson had grown up poor just like everyone else in the family. She had worked her way through school with scholarships and determination. She had started at a small bank as a teller when she was 19 years old. She had climbed and climbed while others doubted her every step of the way. Now Evelyn Thompson was the chairwoman of the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation. She was one of the most powerful financial regulators in the entire United States of America. Banks across the country answered to her agency. Her signature could shut down institutions that had stood for 100 years. And she was very, very protective of her only son. Tamil had never used his mother's position for personal gain. He had never dropped her name to get ahead or opened doors that should have stayed closed. He believed in earning things the right way. He believed that shortcuts would only weaken him in the long run. But today was different. Today a man had looked at Tamil and seen nothing but the color of his skin. Today a man had thrown him out like garbage without even looking at his qualifications. Today a man had proven that some doors would never open no matter how hard you knocked. Tamil did not ask his mother to do anything. He simply told her what happened, and she decided what to do next. That was her choice and her power to use as she saw fit. Miss Jean came back with a plate piled high with food. Fried chicken golden brown and crispy. Collard greens cooked slow with ham hocks. Macaroni and cheese bubbling at the edges. Cornbread so fresh it was still steaming. "Eat up," she said as she set the plate down. "You are going to need your strength for whatever is coming at 3 o'clock." Tamil picked up his fork and took his first bite. The flavors exploded on his tongue, and for just a moment everything else faded away. There was only the food and the warmth and the feeling of being somewhere he belonged. He ate slowly and savored every bite. He talked with Miss Jean about his plans for the grocery store. He told her where he wanted to put it and what kind of products he wanted to carry. He explained how he would hire locally and pay fair wages. He described the community space he wanted to build in the back where kids could do homework after school. Miss Jean listened to everything and asked good questions. She told him about the old days when this neighborhood had everything. It needed within walking distance. She talked about the butcher shop and the bakery and the pharmacy that were all gone now. She painted a picture of what this place used to be and what it could become again. Time passed quickly in the warmth of that little restaurant. Before Tamil knew it, his plate was empty and his glass was dry and the clock on the wall showed 2:45. "Well," Miss Jean said, as she cleared his dishes, "I guess you better get moving. You do not want to miss whatever. Your mama has cooked up for those folks at the bank." Tamil stood and reached for his wallet, but Miss Jean waved him off. "Your money is no good here today," she said. "Consider it an investment in your future grocery store. When you open those doors, I expect free collard greens for life." Tamil laughed and hugged her one more time. Then he walked out into the afternoon sun and headed back toward First Heritage Bank. The walk took about 15 minutes. The streets were quiet in the summer heat. Most folks were inside where the air conditioning kept things cool. Tamil passed by boarded-up storefronts and empty lots filled with weeds. He saw the neighborhood that needed help and remembered why he had come home in the first place. The bank came into view at the end of the block. Those white columns stood tall against the blue sky. The gold letters gleamed in the sunlight. Everything looked exactly the same as it had that morning, but something was different. There were cars parked out front that had not been there before. Black SUVs with government plates. A sedan with a logo on the door that Tamil recognized immediately. It was the seal of the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation. His mother's people were here. Tamil checked his watch. It was 2:58. He was right on time. He walked up the steps and pushed through the heavy glass doors. The lobby that had been so quiet and cold that morning was now filled with chaos. People in suits were everywhere. Some carried boxes of files. Others had laptops open on every available surface. A man with a badge was talking on a phone in rapid, urgent tones. At the center of it all stood Robert Ashworth III. The bank president looked nothing like he had that morning. His silver hair was messy, now like he had been running his hands through it. His face was red and sweating. His gold watch caught the light as his hand shook at his sides. "This is outrageous." Robert was shouting at a woman in a dark blue suit. "You cannot just walk in here and shut down my bank. This institution has stood for over a century." The woman he was yelling at did not flinch. She was calm and professional and completely unmoved by his anger. "Mr. Ashworth," she said in an even voice, The FDIC has the authority to take immediate action when we discover evidence of serious regulatory violations. Our preliminary investigation has found significant problems with your lending practices. What violations? Robert demanded. What problems? We follow every rule in the book. The woman opened a folder she was holding and began to read. Discriminatory lending practices in violation of the Equal Credit Opportunity Act, she said. Falsified loan documents going back at least 5 years. Suspicious transactions that suggest possible money laundering. Shall I continue? Robert's face went from red to white. His mouth opened and closed, but no words came out. The woman looked up from her folder and noticed Tamil standing near the door. Something flickered in her eyes. It might have been recognition. "Mr. Thompson," she said in a slightly warmer tone, "thank you for coming back. We may need you to provide a statement about your experience here this morning." Robert Ashworth's head snapped around. He stared at Tamil with wide eyes. "You?" Robert breathed. "Who are you? What did you do?" Tamil walked forward until he was standing just a few feet from the man who had thrown him out. He looked Robert straight in the eyes and spoke clearly. "I am Tamil Thompson," he said. "I am a small business owner who came to your bank for a loan. I have a solid business plan and strong qualifications. I met every requirement on your application form." He paused and let the words sink in. "I am also the son of Evelyn Thompson," Tamil continued. "She is the chairwoman of the FDIC. She has been watching your bank for a long time, Mr. Ashworth. Your family has been breaking the law for years. All she needed was a reason to finally act." Robert stumbled backward like he had been struck. His back hit a marble pillar and he slid down until he was almost sitting on the floor. "This cannot be happening," he whispered. "This is not possible." The woman in the blue suit stepped forward and handed Robert a document. "Mr. Ashworth," she said, "this is an official order of seizure. As of this moment, First Heritage Bank is under the control of the FDIC. All operations are suspended pending a complete investigation. You are required to surrender all keys, codes, and passwords immediately." 2 men in dark suits appeared on either side of Robert. They did not touch him, but their presence made it clear that he was not going anywhere. "You will also need to come with us for questioning," the woman continued. "We have many questions about the transactions we have discovered. I suggest you contact your lawyer before you say anything else." They lifted Robert to his feet. He was shaking so badly that he could barely stand. His expensive suit was wrinkled and stained with sweat. His gold watch suddenly looked cheap and sat on his wrist. As they led him toward the door, Robert turned and looked at Tamil one more time. His eyes were filled with rage and fear, and something that might have been the beginning of understanding. "You planned this," Robert said. His voice cracked on the words. "This whole thing was a trap." Tamil shook his head slowly. "No, sir," he said. "I came here today for a loan. Nothing more and nothing less. I was honest and prepared and ready to work with you. You are the one who decided to throw me out. You are the one who judged me by my skin instead of my character. I did not trap you, Mr. Ashworth. You trapped yourself." Robert opened his mouth to respond, but the men in suits pulled him toward the door. He stumbled along between them, looking back over his shoulder until he was gone. The lobby fell quiet. Federal agents continued their work gathering evidence and securing files. Patricia, the loan officer, was sitting in a corner looking stunned, but also strangely relieved. Other bank employees stood in small groups, whispering and wondering what would happen next. The woman in the blue suit walked over to Tamil. Her name tag identified her as Deputy Director of Regional Operations. "Your mother sends her regards," the woman said quietly. "She wanted me to tell you that she is proud of you. She also wanted me to give you this." She handed Tamil a business card. It was simple and white with just a name and a phone number printed on it. "This is the contact for the Community Development Office," the woman explained. "They specialize in helping entrepreneurs in underserved neighborhoods. Your mother says your business plan is solid and she knows you will succeed. She wants you to do it the right way through the proper channels without any special treatment." Tamil took the card and looked at it for a long moment. Then he tucked it carefully into his pocket next to his heart. "Thank you," he said. "Please tell her I will call them tomorrow." The woman nodded and then turned back to her work. There was still much to be done before this day was over. Tamil stood in the middle of the lobby and looked around at the chaos. That had once been the most powerful bank in Charleston. The marble floors were scuffed now with footprints from dozens of federal agents. The gold letters on the wall looked tarnished in the afternoon light. The white columns outside cast long shadows as the sun began to sink toward the horizon. He thought about Robert Ashworth sitting in an interrogation room somewhere answering questions about his crimes. He thought about the generations of people who had been turned away from this place because of how they looked or where they came from. He thought about all the dreams that had died in this lobby under the weight of prejudice and greed. Then he turned and walked out of the bank one last time. The news spread through Charleston like fire through dry grass. By 6 o'clock that evening, every television in town was showing the same footage. Federal agents walking out of First Heritage Bank carrying boxes of files. Robert Ashworth being led to a black SUV with his head down and his hands shaking. Tamil watched the coverage from his small apartment on the east side of town. He sat on his old couch with a cup of coffee in his hands. The evening light came through his window and made long shadows on the floor. And then Tamil Thompson smiled and walked home through the neighborhood he loved. The same streets he had walked as a child. The same corners where his grandmother had taught him to ride a bike. The same community that had raised him and shaped him and now welcomed him back. Tomorrow there would be more work to do. More shelves to stock and customers to serve and problems to solve. But tonight Tamil was happy. He had built something good in a world that often seemed broken. He had proven that justice was possible even when the odds were stacked against you. And that was enough. That was more than enough.